Welcome to today's podcast, Prepare, Protect, Prosper, part of our Industry 4 podcast series. Today we'll be discussing key themes and lessons learned from manufacturers who are safely enabling the return to work of their workforce and using digital solutions to support safe and productive working environments. I'm your host, Nick Davis, Industry 4 leader for the UK. The current epidemic has caused significant disruption for manufacturing, and manufacturers who need to sustain manufacturing operations while ensuring the safety of their people. To share some of their personal experience and insights of how industry is safely returning to work, I'm delighted to be joined by Neeraj, Callum and Graham, and perhaps we can start with a few introductions.
Hi, good morning everyone. So my name is Neeraj Shah. I'm Group Environment, Health and Safety Director for Johnson Matthey. So my role is really to make sure that all our people who are working globally go home safely every day.
I'm Callum Irvine. I lead Deloitte's Environment, Health, Safety practice. We support clients in my practice across all industries, so as well as manufacturing. And Nick, I think fair to say over the last few months, it's been distinctly COVID flavoured, the work we've been doing.
Hi, Nick. It's Graham Cox here from PTC. I'm part of the Digital Transformation Solutions team within Europe. My role is working with our customers on looking at our IoT and augmented reality solutions and how we can apply those to really generate some business impact and value into their businesses.
Thank you all, and thank you for joining me today. Neeraj, perhaps we could start with you. Johnson Matthey's both a leading manufacturer and I know has provided a significant support to the UK's PPE efforts in particular. As global environment, health and safety director, what have been some of the biggest challenges that you've had over the past few months and how have you responded to those?
Yeah, thanks, Nick. And firstly, really great to be here today with you. As you said, so for us at Johnson Matthey, health and safety is one of our core values and always at the front of our minds, especially during these difficult times when we come to terms with working during a global pandemic. Therefore, one of the biggest challenges that we've actually faced is really the safety of our people who are working on our sites, and also that all our sites globally remain in full legal compliance with all the new national and state laws relating to the pandemic. As you can imagine, the rate at which these rules and guidance have been issued by the regulatory bodies during the last 3 months has been unprecedented in modern times. And we've really worked diligently to ensure that, firstly, that compliance is achieved across all our sites, but also, more importantly, that our people are protected. And some of the key systems that we've put in place to improve the safety of our people is included things like temperature monitoring before entry into site, improved cleaning and hygiene measures, social distancing measures, and then provision of PPE across all our workforce. One of the key challenges, I think, from a people point that we've really experienced is the role of mental well-being. During this unprecedented time of crisis, one can easily feel stressed, anxious, and overwhelmed, and at all stages, even myself working at home, you experience one of these. We've been quite fortunate at JM that through our global wellbeing platform called Elements, our employees can access a wealth of wellbeing materials. So this has included webinars, videos, activities, and these not cover just mental wellbeing, but also cover physical, financial, social wellbeing too. And we've been fortunate that these can be accessed both when you're connected to your work IT system, but also at home. If you've been furloughed, you can still access the same material. And we've provided, and this has really been quite important for myself personally, that we've provided our managers with tools around resilience. And this has helped them to manage if they have got employees working from home, but also how do you generally manage during changing and challenging times. And I think the key part I wanted to really share today is one of the things we've turned is really how we've used technology to support us to respond to the pandemic. And this has included simple use of technology to quite complicated and difficult, where we really had to engage across multiple stakeholders. So one of the more simple things, which I know a lot of companies are using, is we finalized the rollout of Microsoft Teams globally, providing all our employees with a consistent and reliable tool to remain connected whilst working globally. And Teams has been used not just for work and video calls, but we've used it for coffee breaks, Friday virtual drinks, which has been quite good. and also allowing employees to be connected, reducing risk of social isolation. I'd previously mentioned that we were carrying out temperature monitoring before our employees entered site. So initially we did this using handheld thermometers, but since April, we've implemented across all our sites remote temperature monitoring systems, which has basically improved safety because our people are not coming in close contact with the workforce entering, and also has improved efficiency as we've allowed more through flow of people coming into our sites. We also launched a resilience app for our UK staff, and this app is provided by resilience experts called the Resilience Institute. They offer a science-based, practical and integral program combining tools and techniques from a range of fields, including neuroscience, positive psychology, which you can imagine during these times are really important. And even it includes examples from high-performance sports. And these are all delivered in a simple-to-use toolkit that can be carried by employees anytime, anywhere. And they've got lots of good short videos that have been quite handful. Another use of technology that we trialed and we're currently using includes mixed reality technologies for remote assistance and training and task guidance using Microsoft HoloLens. And this is also called mixed reality glasses. And we've got varied business user cases. So we've used it for remote assistance for operation and troubleshooting of equipment, and also virtual tour of facilities either by EHS auditors or senior leaders, which obviously haven't been as present on our sites as much as we would like, really. And what we found using the HoloLens, that the activity was more effective and we had a better improved user experience than, say, using normal or alternative non-travel options like, say, video camera, phone, or email. The other thing we're currently trialing are video analytics for improving health and safety across our sites by using artificial intelligence tools. And this is analyzing CCTV stream data. So we have across our sites, clearly, from a security point of view, lots of CCTV cameras. So we're now using that data to really analyze where there may be, for example, from a COVID point of view, in real time, where there may be social distancing breaches, or there may be breaches where PPE hasn't been adequately worn, and also other safety trends. So those are sort of the summary of the technology. And then my final point really in terms of the challenges that we've faced has really been from a process point of view. And this is, how do you respond to the changing status of a global pandemic in a consistent way for a global company like JM? And this is really important because we want to treat all our people, fairly across the world globally. And it's really difficult when things are changing so frequently and so quickly. And to respond to this challenge, we have issued our sites with a site response pandemic playbook, which supports basically our site operational response teams and the site leadership teams. And this basically captures best practice from both within JM and external advice we've received. And it outlines safe guidance actions and protocols to be employed during a period of disruption due to the pandemic outbreak. And this includes up to either when sites are being closed or where we restarted operations. And basically it's to ensure the impact of the outbreak is managed safely and really consistently across JM. And part of the playbook, we have something that we use called a pandemic status alert. It's a bit like what the government in the UK are using. And the purpose of this is really to provide clear and consistent EHS expectation for all our sites as the COVID-19 situation becomes better or worse in each country. And each level of status would then lay out the minimum standards that JM would expect that site to follow. Yeah, so those were my three sort of challenges, but also some of the opportunities we've used, particularly around the technology.
That's great. Thanks, Neeraj. I mean, it's great to hear some of those really kind of practical steps that you've been able to take as well. And I do know we'll come back to Graham shortly around some of those uses of the kind of technologies like mixed reality and so on as well. But next, perhaps we could just turn to you, Callum. Obviously, a lot of kind of best practices, I think, that Neeraj has described there. You work across a number of different sectors in your role, Callum. Perhaps you can share a few more insights on what you see other businesses doing in terms of kind of best practices as well?
Yeah, absolutely, Nick. And, I think listening to Neeraj's description there, I think that is as good a test as you're going to get just in terms of how much energy organisations have thrown at this over the last few months and how much progress has been made. And I think, in many ways, you could look at the manufacturing sector as being one of the lead sectors that all other parts of the world are looking into. So where we've had things like non-essential retail, etc., who've been on furlough and shut their operations, I think they've been looking to manufacturers and others who've had to keep the doors open as leaders, if you like, in terms of an example to follow in terms of how to best manage the risk. And across each of the sectors we've been supporting, I think it's interesting to reflect and think over the last relatively short number of months that there's definitely been an emergence of some kind of common to all good practices.
Fantastic. And do you want to perhaps add a bit of colour to some of those best practices you've seen as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And reassuringly, a number of them chime well with some of Neeraj's description of what JM have been doing as well. So, if I was to try and boil it down, I think that there are 5 key capabilities that we've seen most organisations stand up in order to be successful in helping manage the risks. And so to walk through those, number one, I think crucially to be connected to external requirements and guidance, as Neeraj outlined that JM have. So this could be government guidance, could be peer practice, could be industry forums. There is a lot of content out there, and it is changing pretty rapidly. So making sure that you have got the right capability to stay plugged into all of that external content is really important. Secondly is, once you've got that external content, it's often not binary. And so you need to absorb that as an organisation and decide what you want to do with it. So you're taking external data points and guidance, and you're overlaying your own risk appetite and turning that into decisions. How and when do we want to operate? And so making sure that there is a robust and repeatable decision-making process is really important. You want to make sure that you're making the best decisions that you can with the information that's available at the time, and of course engaging all the right stakeholders when you're taking those decisions. So thirdly is need to then say, we've decided as an organisation what we think the risk level is and where, when and how we want to return to operation. There's a need to think about designing what the practical risk controls are going to be to enable that return to happen safely. And we've seen a real explosion of innovative thinking to get people back to work sooner. And, when we think about innovation, it doesn't have to mean something big. We can all do a lap of our local supermarkets to see the controls that have been designed and deployed in a pretty short space of time there. Fourth on the list is, you've designed your controls. You need to have a high cadence cycle to communicate and implement those controls and to make the change within the business. And it's really crucial that mechanism is working well to ensure that the controls you've designed in the centre are going to be adopted locally. I think one of the things that's been of great benefit to all organisations across how they've managed COVID is that buy-in has been, you could argue, a lot easier compared to some health and safety topics we used to, as everyone's able to readily grasp the risk and the issue at hand, and of course is very self-interested in making sure that they're keeping themselves and those around them safe. Lastly, on the list of 5 for me is making sure that you've got the right capacity or capability locally to smoothly ensure the implementation of those controls to kind of meet the risk appetite that you've set as an organisation. It's very unlikely that you're going to find a one-size-fits-all control that you can just implement uniformly. There are going to be local variations. And so having the right capability locally to spot what those variations are and escalate them back up the chain or to find ways of working around them is going to be really important. And so if we step back from those 5 key points, I think in summary, we've experienced a really deep cross-organisational focus on something which is essentially a health and safety challenge. So more people than ever have been tuned into that topic and doing some heavy lifting to make sure that the right things happen. And I think one of the side effects of that in many cases is that it's really elevated the role of health and safety leaders within the business and given them a louder voice than they may have had before.
Fantastic. Thanks, Callum. I'd just like to build on that final point. Neeraj, I expect you've got some strong views perhaps on this, the role and the prominence of health and safety leaders during this current crisis. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so it's really interesting hearing what Callum was saying. And I think particularly with the pandemic, I would hope that the value of effective health and safety risk management and performance has only been heightened in the current pandemic. But I think it has been a real great opportunity for the health and safety function, to provide leadership and foresight to business in ensuring people's safety remain at the core of the business strategy by working very closely with the business. And a particular example I just want to use here is the point Callum made on risk is so important, that existing businesses already had health and safety risks. And when COVID came along, it's added more complexity, but you really need to look across to see if those other risks are still there, and they're still there. And COVID perhaps is a minor risk. So this is where the health and safety function really needs to come to the forefront in making sure that COVID is just one amongst many of the other risks. And how do you then add value to the business by enabling them to identifying those risks and making sure adequate controls are in place, really. And also, I think health and safety should really be seen as key to the reputation of a business. So, for example, if you don't manage it properly, or for example, if there was to be a big COVID outbreak at a site or a serious safety incident, then the reputation of the business can potentially be impacted. And at JM, safety is one of our core values, as I said before. And what we've found is that by building safety to the key deliverables of the business, it really becomes part of the culture or the corporate DNA, and that really helps in effectively embedding it.
Thanks, Neeraj. I think Callum and Neeraj, I think that's been really helpful to paint the picture around both the kind of the broad levers that businesses are able to apply here, and obviously the kind of the critical role that health and safety is having. I'd just like to perhaps double click now around the role that some of these different technologies that Neeraj and Callum have mentioned that are coming to the fore during this current crisis. And Graham, I know I personally have experience of seeing some of your technology being used in a variety of different ways prior to the pandemic and now. But perhaps you could just share some examples about how some of your customers and manufacturers more generally are using technology and data to kind of provide a safe and productive working environment.
Yeah, certainly, Nick. Great to be with you all today. So thanks for that. Coming on to your point, Nick, maybe it's really in three areas, I think, that this type of technology has been brought to the fore in the current COVID crisis. Obviously, we've all experienced travel restrictions and social distancing guidelines that now have to be put in place. So this has really exacerbated, I think, the need behind some of the implementation of these types of technologies. One example is something that we call remote expert assistance, whereby we've deployed, for some years now, it's fairly mature, the augmented reality solution that we can have, whereby, a technical service engineer, an expert who's certified in particular maintenance or operations of equipment, can work remotely with somebody who's on site at a plant or an asset to actually support them through annotation and guidance using the augmented reality solution. It's something called Chalk, and we've got a lot of customers worldwide, like Toyota, for example, who've used this pre-COVID crisis on the basis of reducing time, reducing cost on plant commissioning, where they don't have to get their experts to physically travel to a site. They can actually work remotely to support on-site subcontractors or engineers. The travel restrictions have really brought this to the fore. In many cases, manufacturers can't get the right people with the right skills, the right certifications into the right places. So we've actually made our Chalk solution free during the COVID crisis. There's been many thousands of downloads of this, and people are actually really using this in anger just to support their operations to continue while the travel restrictions and social distancing are in place. There's also been obviously quite a big disruption into the global supply chain in many manufacturers. And this has meant that some companies are starting to look at rebalancing their manufacturing operations to different parts of the world. They're looking for flexibility in their manufacturing operations, but they can't get the experts to go and train the operations team in the new plant, the destination where they're moving their production to, again, because of the travel restrictions. So we've again used one of our augmented reality solutions in a number of cases to capture the expertise from the original site, capture the standard operating procedures, to capture the guidance in an augmented reality solution, and then use that to rapidly ramp up the operations in the new site using that augmented guidance. That's what we call an expert capture. The next stage beyond that, those are sort of immediate recovery, or rather reactions to the crisis. But the next stage that we've observed is a focus on real-time visibility of manufacturing assets, what we call intelligent asset optimization. The justification for this has again been around for some years, and many customers have deployed this type of industrial IoT technology. But the additional impetus is really there now on getting that remote visibility, where we can't get the right people into the right locations, to have remote visibility and support and fixing situations in manufacturing operations through that industrial IoT technology has been, as I say, a big impetus behind that in the current COVID situation. And the third level, it's what I call resilience. A lot of companies, manufacturing organizations are looking at, in a volatile situation where we don't know what's coming next, we need to put in place resilience, some flexibility in manufacturing operations, some obviously, where cash flow is reflected, we need to focus on cost reduction. These are reasons behind the deployment of Industry 4.0 solutions for a number of years now. But again, the current situation is exacerbating this and sort of prompting people to look at this in a more reactive way. And as people start to look at ramping up their operations, ramping up their volumes, changing things within their business, having that level of enterprise operational intelligence really gives them the decision base on which to make those changes within their business. So that's it. That's the three levels we've really observed, Nick, in terms of immediate response, planning for recovery, and then at an enterprise level, looking at resilience and flexibility.
Thanks, Graham. And I just want to pick up one particular point you mentioned there around the technologies that you've described, and both Neeraj and Callum referred to them for a while. My own personal view is that there has been an acceleration of interest in these technologies created by the pandemic. And there are commentators that would say this is kind of accelerating the move into Industry 4. Would you share that view?
I definitely do. Yeah. We've seen a lot of new interest and new deployments. As I say, the downloads of the free chalk solution that we've put out into the market has been evidence of that, I think. So one activity that we've been closely involved in over the last 5 months is the Ventilator Challenge UK, which was a call to action from the UK government about the lack of certified ventilators across the NHS against the anticipated demand for them. So the call to action to some of the biggest and best companies in UK manufacturing went out, and also to some technology companies, including ourselves at PTC. And what was really done there was to look at how production could be switched from automotive and aerospace production facilities to rapidly switch over to producing these medical ventilators, with the restriction, obviously, that we couldn't get the experts, the overseeing training done on site by the ventilator experts into those manufacturing facilities. So what we did again was use one of our augmented reality solutions, the expert capture, to record, to annotate, to get visualization of the operating process for that manufacturing of the ventilator, and then to using headsets, augmented reality headsets, to overlay that information onto the physical production process in the new manufacturing environments. And that really helped in getting rapid scale up, rapid time to quality and to volume of that production process in the destination manufacturing plants. So that's been a very successful project that we've been very pleased to be involved in.
Thanks, Graham. I mean, it's obviously fabulous to see the technology put to such great use as well, and exemplifying the kind of the value that it can bring for manufacturing as well. Thank you all. I think it's been a really good summary of some of the challenges facing industrial businesses and both some specific and more general observations around some of the potential responses. Just to wrap up, I'd just like to ask each of you as guests to perhaps share one final point and piece of advice you would offer to other manufacturers who might be listening to this podcast around how to support the safety and the productivity of their people. So Neeraj, perhaps your final comment, please.
Yeah, I think the use of, particularly for us, the use of digital solution has really helped us and played a vital role as part of the overall safety controls that we've used during this current pandemic. And I think the advice I would really give others is to look at these technologies and try them initially in a small scale pilot, but working very closely with all the stakeholders, such as your legal team, IT security, data protection, local HR, local IT. And then once you really successfully trial those, make sure you've ironed out the issues that you get across some of these key functions, and then look at rolling them out widely after that trial. And for us, particularly around the health and safety, that there have been some challenges, particularly where we're taking videos of people perhaps not working safely. How do you ensure that you're not singling them out? So it's all those sort of things that we've really had to deal with. And then I think the final point I just wanted to make here was it's really been a good opportunity for the health and safety function to really step up and play a very key role in keeping people safe during this pandemic. And hopefully the value for health and safety sort of has been more clearly appreciated across many businesses. So thanks.
Thank you, Neeraj. Fascinating observations. Thank you. Callum?
Yeah, thanks, Nick. And look, at the risk of maybe sounding like a stuck record, I do think risk is the key operative word amongst all of this. And if we think back to 2, 3, 4 months ago, everyone was in a state of distress, looking at what anything, they could bring into the business that had COVID attached to it in the name of, buying any control assurance that they could to get back to operations more quickly. And I think now that we know that COVID isn't going to disappear quickly, particularly for organisations like JM who've got large sprawling geographies, I think there is a window now for a lot of organisations to just step back a little bit and properly survey the landscape and better pick through all of the things that have been done in the last few months and weed out the things that aren't going to have a material impact on managing the risk. Because there are some fantastic things out there, and some of the innovations that both Neeraj and Graham have talked through are testament to that. But there's also been a number of things out there that people have quickly seized, thinking it's going to be doing some good for them in the name of COVID, but actually might just be more of a distraction than a help. So I think now is the window to step back and have that bit of reflection.
Fantastic. Thanks, Callum, as well. And Graham, your final thoughts?
My thoughts, Nick, is really on the old proverb of necessity being the mother of invention. We're seeing the pandemic driving a necessity to operate in new ways, to adapt processes to the new guidelines on health and safety and on travel restrictions. And that really is prompting people to look again at how digital solutions can really help them to address that. And it doesn't have to be a massive disruptive implementation of new technology. There's a lot of things that organisations can do fairly quickly and simply to really invent themselves and to adopt and adapt these solutions into their business operations.
Thanks, Graham. Well, listen, thank you to my guests today and for those listening to the podcast. I look forward to sharing insights and other topics related to Industry 4 in future. Those podcasts and further information around the topics we've discussed today were available at deloitte.co.uk. And thanks for listening.